7:30 on Thursday night, and you're tuned in to Rip Radio Network, which can mean one and only thing, that this is Chip Chat. Welcome to Chip Chat, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I'm Chip. Who are you, Tez?
Yo, you just said it. I'm Tez, yo. We're back.
We are back.
We're back.
We survived the holidays. Did you have a good holiday, Tez?
No.
I mean, I know what happened.
Exactly. Yeah, no. I mean, you know what? I take that back. I did enjoy I actually enjoyed my holiday a lot more than the year prior. But you know what? But as I think most folks who, if you're listening to us right now, there was probably some things that happened this year that you were kind of like, wait, hold on. Are we reliving it over again? So
yeah, so the Omicron's out there and all that stuff. That is not why we are remote tonight.
No,
we are doing this because
you know why? Because of snowflakes. Which we are going to talk about Tucker Carlson later. So don't worry. But actual snowflakes are how shall I say, assembling to rally peacefully on the Washington area, and they may, have a demonstration on our roads overnight, and we didn't want to get caught in that. Exactly. So it's a metaphor going on. I don't know if people are going to pick up on that. I like that.
Yeah. Well, we're trying to, I don't know exactly how to say, but like break in to what we're doing here carefully and in a sort of orderly fashion. It's January 6th. That's what we're talking about. Right. Yeah, I don't know what do you say? Not happy January 6th, but like, hey man, it's January 6th.
It's not even it's too early for that. Like we can't figure it out. I think it will be more so at a point in time where folks are like, hey, what about this 9/11? And I'll be like, before we get to that, let me tell you about January 6th.
Yeah.
I think that's how I and I don't think everybody sees it that way either. So I don't know.
Mos Def does for sure, because remember he told Bill Maher he didn't care about 9/11. Oh, yeah. Having lived through both, I'm a little more feeling like our country was more directly attacked on the 6th than it was on the 11th. That's kind of how I feel.
That's where I'm at with it.
I mean, because I never really thought that, like, even if Al Qaeda did successfully fly planes into things, like their chance to take down our government was zero. They weren't going to succeed at that.
Yeah, and also, I guess the easy one is that that's a foreign attack versus right.
Yeah, we can just nuke those guys. Right. Every other time somebody's attacked the United States, we've just nuked them.
Yeah. So I don't. I look at that like, January 6th to me is the one where you look like, oh, this could have. The reason that went down is because folks wanted to stop the proceeding and stop the peaceful transfer of power. So,
because special snowflakes deserve to win all the time. So it is January 6th, it's been a year to the day when we almost saw the collapse of the Republic, which was saved at the last second by checks notes Dan Quayle.
I saw that earlier. I chuckled just like
save the Republic. We'll explain that in a minute. That doesn't seem like that can be right, but it is true. So we're going to talk about that. We've got a few other things. We do want to mention some sort of positive stuff before we get too far down into that rabbit hole, which is Rip Radio. We have a new logo.
I was going to say.
So if you're watching on the screen instead of listening to us, you might see this fancy new. Yeah, I don't know how to. There you go. Way to go. Yeah, you're pointing at it.
Okay.
It's a new logo. It looks like the world wearing headphones. It's cool. And I like it. I liked our old logo too. It had a kind of 8-bit feel to it, but I like this. This is very modern, I think. I don't know. You're the tech guy.
No, I don't know. It reminds me of Sega game, Carnage.
Oh, yeah, sure. does.
I don't think that's what we're going for at all.
But it does. I can see where you're seeing that for sure.
A little bit, yeah.
Also, before the new year, like during the break from when we signed off, the Rippies happened.
Yes.
So we want to say congratulations to all of the winners of the various awards. Shout out to the Miss O show, which won for Best New Show. 420 took home 2 awards.
Okay.
And our nemesis, Kiki, won an award. We don't know for what, though. And so we're not going to talk about that. And we don't care.
Right. You won. Right?
Yeah.
She won. That's all that matters.
She won something. Whatever. I hosted it, though, without you, which was it was all right for me. I got more stage time, but I'm
glad you enjoyed. I'm glad I could help out.
Yeah, I missed you there. And it was an interesting event. It was a nearly sold out event too, I think, or maybe it was a sold out event. It was a lot. There were a lot of people there, and we did our best to keep our masks on and all that stuff, and so you'll see the photos.
You seemed fine, weeks after.
Yeah, I made it through, and you'll see the photo. And I'm boosted and all that, but you'll see the photos, and you'll see that I'm wearing my official Chip Chat branded mask that we got, the airbrushed special edition ones. This was early in the pandemic. We got when masks were not available. We even had custom ones. We were that good. So yeah, Brian's got one.
What was your best joke? Can you give anybody a joke that you dropped at?
They were sort of mostly like referential jokes.
Okay.
That had to do with like people that were there that you'd have to know. But I did remind everybody, since it was at the Hilton on Capitol Hill, that if they didn't like the results of the Rippies, that the Capitol was just down the street and they could take it up with them. Perfect. Which is very fitting for tonight. I think I also took a shot at Trump himself for a couple of things. Our Trump, while he wasn't in the room, and I thanked him for all of what he does for the network while he also wasn't in the room to stop me from doing it, which I know that if he goes back and watches the monologue will make him very upset and uncomfortable. So I feel like that was a win.
Yeah, if that's the outcome, then you won there.
Yeah, that's the goal. So with our new logo, we want to remind everybody to buy our stuff.
Merch, yes.
Yeah, you got to buy the merch. It's what keeps us in business. Otherwise, we may have to start, I don't know. What are we going to sell? What could we? We don't have anything left.
I was like, is it the dog?
We're going to start renting out Brian. That's what we can do. We can you can rent Brian for a day.
A lot of people need production on all types of their creative products. So
I've been seeing some of these Facebook Live videos that people are doing, and they're awful, or they're Insta or TikToks or whatever. You need production. You need Brian, and for the low fee of $19.99 an hour, you can borrow him.
This is making nobody any type of money. I'll take over negotiations. Ignore that price. If you heard that price, then you know what, you can get it. Other than that, we'll scrub that from the podcast.
That's right. Yeah. Shop steward Tez will take over negotiations from now on. I'm no good at that. Oh man! All right, so we've got quite a show to get into. Yeah, exactly. Obviously, with all of that, so it does feel good to be back. Do you have a word?
Yeah, I got a word. Yeah,
okay. I have a word. We'll see how this works. Okay, so we're gonna hit our first break, and then we'll come back with the first half of the show. We'll see how that goes. Right. So sit back, grab some
Resentiment.
It's broken glass time. You're listening to the best show, the only show, Chip Chat on RIP Radio Network.
Sweeps.
All right, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Rip Radio Network. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
What's poppin'?
So we're going to start off with some actual news. This is a segment called Space News.
Oh, love it.
Yeah, it's like Space Jews, except we don't have the lasers this time. So
anytime.
Yeah, at all. We actually don't have space lasers. I mean, what else was Shatner doing up there? He was fixing the laser. That's what it's Jewish. That's why, Bezos couldn't touch the laser.
Yeah. Isn't he Cuban?
I don't know what he is, but the laser, if you're a Jewish man, there's a way to check, right? So the laser won't let you touch it unless you can prove it, so to speak. I don't make the rules. That was the thing. Abraham and God set that one up a few thousand years ago. So,
we'll get to more about Jews later.
We're in here. Okay, so over the Christmas break, while we were gone, on Christmas no less, the James Webb Telescope blasted off from French Guiana in South America on a French rocket, which surprisingly worked somehow.
I knew you were going there.
Yeah, well, and they got pink money too. And so the James Webb Telescope, which is named after a NASA administrator who basically created the moon program, took off, and it's on its way to this sort of point called Lagrange Point 2, L2. It's very far away. It's like 1 million miles away from Earth. It's not going to be serviceable like Hubble or anything. And the Webb telescope is an infrared telescope. It's going to be able to see in infrared out into deep space, which means it's going to be able to see stuff that all the other telescopes so far have not been able to see, because infrared light can make it through dust clouds and other things, and it doesn't peter out over distances as much as the other things do. So anyway, it's very cool. But this telescope, it had like a lot of things that could go wrong with it. Right. And a lot of those things went right. They got it up there, and they did the unfurling of the solar shade.
It has to unfold. It has to go. Like, they had to fold it down, right, so that it could travel, because it's that big or whatever, right?
Yeah, the sunshade that unfurled is roughly the size of a tennis court. That's that thing that Djokovic is not going to be playing on in Australia, because he won't get a vaccine or something. So it's big, and of course that wouldn't fit inside the tube of a rocket, so they had to figure out how to fold it up, and it's also got to be very light and very thin and all this kind of complicated stuff. So what they did was they kind of folded it up like a big kite with poles, the way a kite would have poles, and then it squeezes up, and then when it's done, when it got up there, it kind of unfurled the poles. You can think of them as like sort of telescoping poles like that.
Right.
And it stretched it out. And it worked. It worked. A lot of people were worried about that, but it worked. So that was pretty cool.
And then they had like 300 something, like when you were saying for point of failures or something, it was like 300 plus or something.
344 points of failure.
Which is insane.
Now they've crossed nearly 170 something of them with this. And the other thing that they did that has happened with this is that the supports that hold up the secondary mirror, which is the mirror that the light reflects to after it hits the big mirror, that mirror is now roughly in place. The hinges worked and all of that. So now basically the last thing to do is to snap the sides of the main mirror into place, which are these big hexagonal mirrors. There's 21 of them all together, or 21 feet across. Yeah, it's 21 feet across. Big mirror. And it's made of beryllium, which is a very light metal, and coated in gold. And so it's very cool, and it's very shiny, and it's going to do this amazing stuff. And like within, I don't know, a month or so, we ought to actually get some images.
The images are coming back in?
Yeah. Okay. And it's because it's only 1 million miles away or so. It's like, 14 seconds or something light travel. It's very quick. So whatever Webb sees, the folks in Baltimore will see nearly immediately. Oh, and it's being flown in Baltimore, by the way.
Now you said as well it's not serviceable like Hubble. Is it based that is that like I don't know if I didn't see it in the article necessarily, but I'm assuming that anything that needs to be fixed on it fixes itself, or it's kind of just self-sufficient and it just
it can't be fixed. So if something breaks, it's broken.
With Hubble, something that has 300 plus.
Yeah,
but I'm wondering if those points of failure are just on the launch or like once
they're mostly in the setup.
Okay.
After so that, once it's up and running, the limiting factor is going to be when it runs out of power. It has
doesn't it have solar on it though?
It does have solar arrays to power itself up, but that can't get enough power all the time.
And also what it's doing, yeah, right.
Yeah, so it has like additional power source on there. Most of these kind of things have these sort of nuclear batteries in them. And this one should work for like 10 years. But a lot of times when they say that something is going to work for 10 years, it turns out to work a really lot longer.
Longer, right?
Yeah. Like the Spirit and Opportunity rovers, the twin rovers that we sent to Mars in the early 2000s, were supposed to run for like 90 days. And the last one, it can't move anymore. It's all broken to the point where it doesn't move, but it's still sending back like chirps of data and able to see. And that's been like 15 years.
Right.
So that's pretty good. We have 2 other rovers on Mars at the moment. So that's pretty good too.
How you feeling about space right now? Because I mean, right, I feel like there's that gap right in between the shuttles retiring. I feel like, at least let me not say there's a gap. There's a gap in America, in American space, because of other places around the world. But like, it feels like, obviously there's a heavy private influence right now that comes from.
Well, you mean a tax deferred influence in it?
Yeah, right.
I would say that
I usually am the one to
correct yourself, sir.
I should correct myself. I'm usually the one saying that these tax right. I'm completely in the wrong for that. Yes, these are taxpayer funded billionaire space missions.
I would say that for like human space flight, there was a little bit of a dip, but in that same time period, we saw some like really fantastic stuff happen in space, including the Cassini-Huygens probe, which was able to like literally swoop through the rings of Saturn and land a lander on Titan, which was pretty impressive. We've got Galileo that's gotten to Jupiter and gotten some really interesting stuff. And the New Horizons probe, which was the chief scientist on that who designed basically the whole mission, Brian May, guitarist of the band Queen, who is also an astrophysicist, designed the New Horizons probe, which flew out past Pluto and took pictures of Pluto, which like drastically changed our understanding of Pluto and stuff that's way, way, way out there. These missions take a really long time because of the distances. So that stuff was launched 20 years ago, and it doesn't like get to its target. They're talking about missions that are going to take so long that they're multi-generational, like that the people who design and launch them will never see them get to the point where their mission is. And they'll have to then train the next like kid to do like that science
puzzle piece. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like
and transfer the work. And the only other thing like in human endeavor that kind of is sort of similar to that is like the architects who designed the cathedrals in Europe or whatever, where they knew they wouldn't see them completed and they would have to like get them started and then hand it to the next guy. And then that guy wasn't going to see it get completed. It takes 200 years. And then he was going to have to hand it off. So like, it's sort of like that, but in space, which is cool. Very cool.
I find space super. And even for the craziest thing for me is the amount of people who have flown to space. And obviously there's been certain tragedies, but there haven't been that many. Like the complexity.
It's pretty safe.
The complexities of what you have to do to get up
there,
I find it like the success rate to me is, and I don't want to like trivialize obviously the people who've been lost. In
Michael Strahan's fine, so it's all. Right. I mean, at that point,
basketball practice. What was it with Columbia? Was Columbia the one in 2003?
Yeah, Columbia's the one that exploded over Texas.
Yeah, that one. I remember I was at basketball practice. It was a Saturday that happened. I was like, because you look up and you're like, we're out here. We're always playing. You're playing fate, but again, at the same time, I found just in general space travel from all the countries that have been able to send people into orbit. I mean, no, it's crazy safe for what they're accomplishing. So.
Yeah, and it's really
insane.
good.
It's insane, actually.
So speaking of space travel and things that aren't as safe in space, another thing that happened over the break was that a meteor exploded over Pittsburgh. And this is bad because it was over a populated area. It went boom.
So did you hear that boom?
With people something like the force of 30 tons of TNT.
From a meteor, quite.
And it's
did you hear that
crazy.
Boom? People across southwestern Pennsylvania certainly did.
I don't know if Brian's going to see if he can play the boom or maybe
I
not.
Hear it.
Yeah, it was a big boom, and people couldn't figure out really what it was.
Did you hear that boom? People across south.
There you go.
No, that's the.
So did you hear that
so
boom?
Everybody's like, "What happened?" And after a lot of checking and stuff, including with some of the GOES satellites or these geo satellites that sort of look at Earth and look for environmental issues and things like that, they're like, "Oh, well, it's definitely a kind of a meteor called a bolide." These things apparently hit Earth all the time, and they're traveling 45,000 miles an hour, and they weigh 1,000 pounds. And most of the time, they just like kind of land in the ocean,
right?
Or they're.
I'm all here for that.
Yeah, and nobody knows about them or cares. But in this case, this one was over Pittsburgh. But the story is how they were able to figure this out. That they had some of the geostationary lighting mapper part of the satellite on the GOES 16 satellite was looking and saw the flash, but then the infrasound stations, the US has these infrasound stations that are all over the world listening for somebody setting off a very large explosion, because what they're looking for is somebody violating nuclear test bans.
Right.
And they were able to use those and hear the boom and figure out where it was, and then timestamp it and figure out and like, oh, it was a meteor blowing up over Pittsburgh.
I found it crazy. They said if it wasn't a cloudy day, that they would have seen something 100 times brighter than the moon, which is insane.
I just watched Don't Look Up, so I'm like terrified of this idea now.
I haven't. This is because it was on like Chloe was watching that in the house and was on. I was sitting around reading. But I know, right? After you saw nerd, after we just had a whole 20 minutes on space. But but I caught certain parts of that. Like I just like there were certain parts of it that I had caught of it, and like I laughed, but I wasn't paying too much attention to it. But as I finished, I was reading a book about people who don't trust experts anymore. And
that's dead on. It's pretty much dead on.
But yeah,
it was that.
Yeah.
Good book. This book had DiCaprio in it though, so it's better.
Right, exactly. And I heard some laughs in it too.
Yeah, it was funny. Also terrifying and made me sad and cry a little. So that's good.
That is, you know what? It is good in a very I don't know. We got to.
It's not going to work. Like the people we need to convince about this are going to watch this movie or not going to watch this movie. They're like, that's just trash, and they're not going to watch it. So we're just, we're DJing to ourselves as we do on this show all the time.
All the time, right? But I was going to say, look, we got to deal with insurrection this week. Next week we'll talk climate change.
Right. So good. Look at that. This is the first time ever Tez has decided that climate change isn't the existential threat.
I got it.
All right. So with that in mind, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a short break. When we come back from the break, we are going to talk about the coup, because that's what we're all talking about, and all the things that happened, including the epic fight between Raphael and Tuckums. It's going to be great. You don't even know where this is going. We don't even know because Mark Meadows hasn't sent us a text message telling us what to talk about yet. But
it's true.
It will happen.
Not to talk about.
Yeah, right. It'll happen in the break. Hannity's coming up. Don't you wait. We'll be right back. You're listening to Chip Chat on Ripped Radio Network.
Swift.
All right, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Rip Radio Network. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
What's popping, yeah?
That was some nature stuff.
I was really relaxed.
Yeah, I was almost about to, meditate or something.
Almost.
All right, let's talk about the coup. Let's start with Liz Cheney and Sean Hannity. Now, Sean Hannity is what happens if you pour, I don't know, let's say bleach on your thumb, stick it in the microwave, and it comes to life. That's what he looks like. So Hannity was texting Meadows and Trump and apparently a bunch of other people like on January 6th and beforehand, and the select committee has those texts, and they want to talk to Hannity about those texts because they're pretty bad. Here's some excerpts of it, and this is all kind of gets to what we're talking about, that anybody who on the low end of the Republican excuse for the coup says that it was a spontaneous riot by a bunch of people who weren't organized or coordinated.
It's not that.
This tells that is a lie.
Yeah.
Because here you've got these messages from Hannity to the Trump people saying directly, I don't think this plan is going to work. Quote, we can't lose the entire White House counsel's office. I do not see January 6th happening the way he is being told. That's in reference to this idea that while Navarro and Trump and them were planning what Peter Navarro weirdly told on himself was called the Green Bay sweep or something like that. They codenamed their coup plan, the Green Bay sweep. Yeah, I don't know. Well, Aaron, I guess, is on their side. But so the Green Bay sweep plan involved Mike Pence just rejecting votes for no good reason and, quote, remanding them to the states to then get to the bottom of it or whatever. This had been discussed in the White House, and the White House counsel's office, Pat Cipollone and some of these other guys were like, if you even try this, we will all resign immediately, which will make it very difficult for you to make a case that this is like a legal avenue, because why would everybody resign?
Exactly. And that's the reason why the threats of these mass resignations in certain situations are important.
And it worked.
It was
one of the things that probably convinced Mike Pence not to do this. And I, to be perfectly honest, I think Mike Pence wants America to exist as a democracy. And so he didn't want to do that anyway. But it was some combination of the White House counsel's office and Dan Quayle convincing him that there was no legal avenue here not to do it, and he doesn't do it. But Hannity knew that was the case. He's also got text saying that he's very worried about the next 48 hours. And then immediately after the event, after the coup, he's texting him and Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan is the sexual assault facilitator of the Ohio State University that as assistant wrestling coach presided over the sexual assault of many student athletes. Participated in? Can't say. That's a Matt Gaetz question. So
I feel like there's an allegedly that's supposed to go somewhere, but you left us.
I don't know. I can't find it. Okay. Did I drop it? It's somewhere around here. I don't know.
Okay.
I heard it. Somebody alleged it to me. That's how allegedly works, right? Means I heard it. That's allegedly. Okay. So
we weaved it in. I think our lawyers will figure it out now.
Yeah, sure. We'll get Pat Cipollone right on it.
I think we weaved it in enough.
So Meadows and Jordan and Hannity are texting back and forth. I don't know about cute boys or whatever they're into. And at some point, Hannity tells him, like, we got to make sure that Trump never mentions the election again.
Yes.
And then, like, within seconds of that, he's like, the election was stolen. And he's still onto it. Even today, he issued some bullshit statement because he can't tweet.
That right from
the desk of bad spelling. Ugh. Another sort of tangential to this, which we can get to that whole thing. To be clear, I don't buy these text messages from the Fox News people or the White House people or DJ, TJ, or Ivanka or anybody saying you got to stop this now. I don't think those are real.
You just they wanted it on record that
they wanted to be on record saying that they oppose the violence. I don't think they actually had a problem with it. I think they just wanted to make sure that if anybody checked, they did say, hey, look, violence is wrong.
That's what, you know what's crazy? That's how brazen Trump was, and it still is, because he was like, no. They were very nice, the nice people, but it's time to go home now.
Yeah, we love you. You're very special, but it's time to go home. Now, what you're talking about is this video that Trump eventually made at the end of the insurrection to tell the terrorists, okay, time to go home. What we've learned from some of these text messages in the select committee's work is there were a lot of takes of that video. What we saw, what we know to be that video, was not the only version of that. There were many tries, and we need to know what he said in those other things that they decided not to air. Yeah, because what are they? What could they be? You know, they could be like praising them. It could be telling them to keep it going. It could be just throwing gas on the fire. I mean, who knows? There's just no point in speculating about it. It's probably even more ridiculous than I can even think of.
Right. You probably couldn't dream up what was actually said.
Speaking of things that you couldn't dream up that people said, Insurrection Barbie, otherwise known as Jenna Ryan, a Texas real estate agent who flew to the insurrection in a private jet, was sentenced to jail time. She was sentenced to jail time for a couple of federal misdemeanors that other rioters were getting only probation for. Mostly, she calculates, and I think correctly, because after she was arraigned and pled guilty to it, people on Twitter told her that she was going to go to jail. And she decided she wasn't going to go to jail because she had, quote, definitely not going to jail because I have blonde hair, white skin, a great job, and a great future. Now,
to be honest, was there a lie? I mean,
no, she had every reason to assume this was going to work.
Yeah, now I'm enjoying how this ended up. I truly.
So she tweeted that in between the time that she was convicted and sentenced, and then the judge knew that she tweeted that and was like, "Yo, you got to do jail time for saying that shit."
Yeah, you know.
So now she's going to jail, but that's not the story. The story is that she is complaining that she is being, improperly maligned and called names like Insurrection Barbie because she was part of the insurrection and she's blonde. She doesn't like that. She says that this is unfair.
Mm.
And what did she compare being called Insurrection Barbie to?
Being a Jew in Germany.
That's right.
In specific time, I think, not right now.
No, she didn't mean
right
currently.
Not right now.
She had a specific time frame in mind.
Yeah. Because
yes, she referred to the idea that the Jews were scapegoats or something. So here's the quote. They're making fun of my skin color. They're calling me Insurrection Barbie, she said in an interview on NBC News. They have no idea who I am as a person, what my beliefs are, what I've been through, who I am. They see me as a one-dimensional caricature. They don't see me as a human. And so this is the epitome of a scapegoat, just like they did that to the Jews in Germany. Those were scapegoats. And I believe that people who are Caucasian are being turned into evil in front of the media. Then the reporter asked if she was really equating her situation with the Holocaust. And she's like, you know what? I can't even answer that because I'm going to get canceled for answering that. Like, man, lady, I don't know.
I think with all of these, once somebody says whatever condition they're currently under is akin to either slavery or, in this case, like the treatment of Jews in Germany or to the Holocaust, they're more than likely a supporter of both of those conditions.
Yes,
either explicitly or just with general, they would have apathy if that ended up happening. So
yes,
that's the first.
Yes,
it's always that. It's just
they're like, this is the real discrimination. Oh, okay, got it. It's reverse racism. Cool.
Yeah, okay. It's every time. Just
yeah. So what's for dinner? I don't know. There was speaking of which, there's a famous right-wing conspiracy radio host named Kuzma who died over the Christmas break. What did he die from, Tez?
Hold on, let me take a deep. I like guessing on this one. Did he die of complications from COVID-19?
He did, because
I didn't even know.
I didn't think it was real and told everybody not to get vaccinated. So then when he started coming down with symptoms, they're like, you should go to the hospital, all his people. And he was like, no, so they can jab me. I'd rather die here. And then he did. And they found him on Christmas Eve and they took him to the hospital. Where
they found him on Christmas.
Yeah, where we spent I don't know, however many thousands of dollars of public money to try for 10 days to keep this guy alive. He woke up briefly, squeezed ivermectin into his mouth, took a photo of that, and then died. So good for him. We're proud of him for his support of the First Amendment.
I think what's sick is how many shows I could go back and find this same.
We have this segment every week.
It's like putting reruns.
Yeah. How can we throw gas on this fire?
But it's not reruns. It's a new person every time.
It's a new person every time. So let's talk about the coup. So you and I are both native to this area. We grew up here, in the shadow of the Capitol. I worked there briefly. You are in that area often. How are you feeling about this, like a year after?
I guess for me, I don't know. This is a good question. Now, this almost turned into like a chip chat therapy session.
We're trying.
Right. I don't want to say that I don't want to sit here and have like a cynical response to it, because I feel like that's the easiest thing to do. I think it's scary. I think to me that there's a group of folks in this country that are just ready to give away, right, the idea of this place, and I think surrender it to an authoritarian rule. And I find that very disturbing. As I've mentioned on here before, the week after this, I went and decided to take an oath of allegiance to the United States of America. So, for me, I think in a personal sense, it's troubling that this was allowed to happen. But I think that's a simple way to look at it. I think on the larger scale of this, it's like, all right, well, how did we get here? What is the way out of this? And is the way out of this even possible? And I don't know. I mean, I think if you look at it if I look at it a year later, I think it's possible, but the action that needs to be taken hasn't been taken. And I didn't think it would dissipate, like whether it's support for the idea or Trumpism, right, as an idea. I didn't think that would dissipate, but a year later, I look at it, I'm like, this doesn't seem like we're moving in a direction that when you have a national tragedy, a country should move in. I guess is the simple way to put it.
I mean, it is a complicated thing to try to give an answer on.
Yeah.
I mean, for the years prior to this culmination of this, the question I kept asking was, as these people become more and more disconnected from reality, what are we going to do when the election happens and we have to then reintegrate them into reality? And the answer to that question is now laid bare by some of the information that we are getting out of the polls that came out this week, which is we are not going to reintegrate them into reality. They have, they saw what happened, and in the Republican world, and when I say Republican, I'm not shorthanding like right-wing extremists and calling them Republican. This is the majority. 70-something% of the Republicans responded to these polls believing 4 things simultaneously. 1, that nothing happened there. It was just a peaceful demonstration. 2, that the FBI and the deep state or whatever set up the people who were there. 3, that the people who did the attacking were really Antifa and Black Lives Matter supporters. And 4, that the violence executed on the Capitol was justified. They believe all 4 of those things at once, that nothing happened and that political violence is justified, that the FBI did it and also that it was Antifa, and nothing happened. And they hold all of those things to be true in their minds at every second of their lives. The question of can we reintegrate these people? I think the answer is a resounding no, because there isn't a thing. Right now, there's a vigil being held by these people outside the DC jail to support what they refer to as political prisoners. These people who actually attempted to unmake the United States, who are rightly in jail and going through the judicial process and, supporting the cops and Blue Lives Matter or whatever. They're out there saying that those people are political prisoners. And, I've given up on like pointing out Republican irony at any point anymore, because it doesn't matter. Shaming them with their own words doesn't stick. It doesn't count. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. We have to stop pretending that we can save these people. And
what do you do with them, though? I mean,
that's what I don't know. I mean, I'm still in that quandary.
So then, and here's, I guess how I look at it is that, and it's hard even not to say the problem, right? Because what else could I call them outside of a problem? What they did last year was a problem. What also backs and finances this is a problem. What it seems like to be like power showing itself right in its worst forms of like we're gonna harness it no matter what, with tactics that you like again that are completely anti what this country claims to be founded upon. But those folks aren't going anywhere, and
they might be.
No, they're not. They're not. They're gonna still be your neighbor. They're gonna still be in a person at your school, and I think there's gonna have to be some way, and I'm not saying even the ones who like, if people are screaming like die in your face, here's a noose, I want to grab, like, I'm not even saying to interact. I'm not saying that you need to interact with those folks. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But if someone is, I guess to me, right, if someone's espousing their like views on why they support what's going on, I don't think it's for everyone, but at a certain point, we got to engage people and ask questions. And I don't think this engagement on like the political level on that. I'm just saying as common people, and I think specifically more so, if you're a white person who doesn't feel this way, and someone, those conversations definitely have to happen. But in general,
I don't know. I mean, they can't though. Like I've tried it. Like if you get somebody who wasn't at the Capitol or breaking skulls or whatever like
right.
that, but they're out there saying, look, it was nothing. This didn't actually happen. Or if they're out there saying that this is a reasonable thing to happen because of, the way that these people were treated or something, that's not a person you can be on the same planet with, because they can't like understand reality. They're in a place where Comet Ping Pong has a basement.
Yeah, and it doesn't.
And Comet Ping Pong does not have a basement. But to this day, all of these people, all of them, I mean, within a man of everybody who is a member of the Republican Party, who has ever voted for a Republican, believes to, like, in their heart of hearts, that it is true that there is a basement of a building that doesn't have a basement. It's just not even, it's not possible. It is not possible, because
you know what,
if you tell me that nothing happened on January 6th, if you tell me that this was a peaceful demonstration, and then I say, all right, whatever, buddy, hand me that newspaper or hand me a sandwich or I don't trust. If I ask you to hand me a wrench, you might like give me a watermelon. Like you wouldn't, the thing that you think is happening is so different from the thing that is going on. It's just not, it's not trustworthy.
No, I agree. I guess there's 2 points.
Would you ride in a car with somebody like that? Would you let somebody who thinks that January 6th didn't happen pilot a motor coach with you inside of it?
They're probably driving people in Ubers today. They probably drove somebody's Uber today. Like that, that's already happening, right? I mean, I think 2 points.
But then they're going to see a wall and be like, no, it's really a road. I can drive right through it. Slam.
I don't know. Could it get to that point of it? Yes, obviously.
It appears that is where we are. It does appear.
But I think, again, I guess there's 2 points on there. One, even that Comet Ping Pong one is just because it's not just, I've had that conversation. I remember a good friend of mine when it happened asked that in earnest, and I was even in that moment I was like, wait, no, come on, no. But in that moment I was like, well, I've been there before. I've actually been with someone who did a show there before, and I can let you know that there's no basement at this place.
I've been there many times.
and even now, like, and this is now I think about it as a long ago, but it's like what I didn't ask there is like, well, how did you get to that point? because I think those just because for me personally, I'm interested in how people arrive there, and it might not even change anything.
What if they just say that I got it from Facebook or I got it from the internet or I've been reading Drudge or whatever? Like it doesn't.
I was like, well, what makes you like by reading that? What qualifies that as the truth to you? What makes that true? And like
because
I
it's
just
not the lamestream media, because the fake news, New York Times, because the Bezos Washington Post, because blah blah blah, and I mean, look at this is
they're not go. And I think the other thing is even though January 6th happens in other places and they don't like it's over with, right? Everything changes. That didn't happen here.
Because the government didn't snap back. See, this is part of the problem. On the one hand, these people, this is not a partisan issue, but only one party is perpetrating the crime, and only one party is interested in upholding basic rule of law and democracy. So it looks like a partisan issue, even though it isn't.
Right.
In other countries, basically what happens every time there's a change of power is the party in power, the group in power, prosecutes the party out of power. There's just endless streams of allegations of corruption, scandal, trials after trials, and it devalues the society, the governance of the country. It often is taking place in places that aren't really governed by rule of law, that you have to bribe your way through every kind of transaction with the bureaucracy. Those are what we would call failed states. They're not objective in what's going on. So the United States has every interest in not becoming that. And so on the one hand, we don't want to prosecute former politicians or former office holders because we don't want to look like those failed countries. On the other hand, we are dealing with the truth that the elected officials, the government officials, the appointed, elected, and otherwise involved government officials did in fact perpetrate this attack on the United States. And while it was the right thing to do for Ford to say pardon Nixon and like save the country from that kind of instance, they are of the same party. And what we're dealing with now is the Justice Department maybe objectively needing to follow through and prosecute people for breaking the law, but thinking twice about it because of the way that it looks.
And I think on that note there, if they've broken the law, they've broken the law and they should be prosecuted. Like if that one should be simple there. And it is, unfortunately, it isn't that simple. And I think, I have little to no empathy for anybody involved. And also anybody who even went down there and you didn't go in, because again, you still are part of that mob.
Yeah, you are part of it.
Yeah. And so like I have, again, little to no empathy for that. I think just my initial point to be clear about is that I know those folks aren't going anywhere and they are inside. They're in there, right? They're here. They're part of our society. They're going to continue to right to vote if they don't all die from COVID. But
that's the thing. I mean, they're talking about this national divorce. They're talking about separating themselves from the world. They never end up following through on this, right? All those Republicans who said that they weren't going to watch football anymore are definitely all playing fantasy and watching the NFL and all that stuff. And they bought new Keurigs or whatever they did. I don't know that you're right that they're not going anywhere, but they may go somewhere. Like there is this kind of chance that we are going to self-segregate into the United States and whatever the fuck this is. Let's call it Texas. I don't know.
And again, it's not that I don't really see and I think, we'll get to this a little later, but the mechanisms that should have went in as soon as January 6th happened last year, they didn't.
That's kind of where we're at right now. Like today, Chuck Schumer and his folks were talking about, we need to change the filibuster rules in the Senate because we need voting rights to pass. And we need to pass this because there are, at last count, 163 Trump Republicans who believe that January 6th was either justified or didn't happen, who believe that the election was fixed or stolen, who are running in elections to gain power over the operation of elections.
Because they saw the playbook. They saw the playbook, and that's where it just gets insidious because playbook is shown right with the 2020 election, and even right, you're like quote unquote good characters that acted during the time, right? Whether you go through the list, right, and they didn't bow to some of the pressures that were put upon them. Listening to the comments a year later, folks are switching up, and again, couple that with the people who realize like, whoa, this is democracy, this isn't how it's supposed to go. I'm going to follow through with what I'm here to do. If they're switching up, and then you're also, whether it's secretaries of state, all these things inside in these states, like if you're getting these people who are lining up for election, and there's big money that are funding these elections as well too, they again the voting rights one seems to be I don't maybe they know something that we don't know. Maybe
the part of the problem with
is there 10 Republicans that are going to vote for this that I don't know about?
No, but yeah, well, if they change filibuster, they don't need that. But
I know, but
there were 7 Republicans who voted in the Senate to impeach, and none of them are saying anything right now, and that's a big problem. Ted Cruz, of course, did not vote to impeach, but referred to the attack on the Capitol as an attack by a bunch of terrorists, and then immediately was taken to task by Tucker over that comment.
I don't, and I think for me, and I don't want to get all, what is it, hoity-toity, and but like reading about how like propaganda wings run, like that's what happened with that interview, right?
Of course it is,
and like,
the people who are being sold this story, it is tempting to call them dupes and be like, look, you just didn't know any better, and you were sold a bill of goods, and that's the deal. But I don't buy that one. I don't buy that, not for an instant, because you have to put yourself in a position where you're susceptible to this kind of bullshit, and that comes from being already okay with,
I agree with you,
some level of this kind of behavior, whether it's that you are a like outwardly flashing white supremacist, or whether you're just like somebody who crosses the street when you see a black guy, or
you have even if you just have just general white grievance towards
if like, why didn't I get into that school or something?
You perceive that this country is no longer working for you the way that it used to work for you in this like nostalgic dream time when things really weren't that well back then either. What people are pining for is not the greatest of times. But I mean,
the reality of what these people are saying is troubling and scary. And I mean, we really need to think about that, because if it is funny to watch them eat each other, right? It's funny to watch Tucker go after Ted Cruz. These two nerds are the most kickable high school kids you've ever met. Ted Cruz was a drama kid who couldn't even get that gig, and Tucker was like a fabulously wealthy shit sack walking around with his fucking bow ties. And I mean, maybe this, what I'm learning from this? Bullying is bad. Bullying is bad because it leads to Republicans. If people like us hadn't kicked those guys' asses so badly as teenagers.
Speak for yourself. I had conversation. I was, me, I'm a humanitarian, man. I'm talking.
All right. If people like me hadn't participated in so much school violence, I wasn't necessarily like a physically violent person. I lost a lot of fights in school, but I definitely like ran my mouth and told people when they were stupid or bad at something, and just like needlessly like, hey man, you suck at math. And they'd be like, what the fuck, man? I'm trying really hard. I'd be like, yeah, but you should stop because you're fat and stupid. Like it's just no chance. Why don't you get out of here? And then they've done. Look what you've done. Then they kick my ass. But like Ted Cruz probably got his ass kicked so much in high school that he became Ted Cruz. This is definitely what happened to Tucker. I'm sure this is what happened to Marjorie and why she got really into CrossFit or whatever. Like it's all kind of this thing. Matt Gaetz, geez, look at Matt Gaetz. Look at Matt Gaetz. There's never been a more punchable face on this planet than Matt Gaetz.
He's still into high school.
Yeah, right. Well, don't let him near the high school.
Yeah.
No, Matt. No.
Yeah, I don't know. And as I'm just looking at, I've just probably spent the last year just trying to, like, I guess just figure out and like, where are we? And I really don't know. There's none. I tell them there's not enough books I could read. There's not enough articles. I mean, I have a general idea, but it's almost kind of like, it feels like it's a wait and see moment. Like I
agree that it's because I've been just in this state of question for the last probably 3 or 4 years of like, what are we to do with this? Because you're right, that people haven't gone anywhere yet. I mean, they might. I'm honestly hoping for some sort of mass delusional behavior that ends up. We know from the researchers at Kaiser that of the 825,000 people dead of COVID in these United States, that 163,000 of them are dead because they didn't get vaccinated intentionally. And it is possible that we could accelerate that curve in some very drastic fashion, and these people could all Darwin themselves off the planet entirely.
I'm not here for that. I'm
not advocating for that. I don't want that to happen.
I think it's entirely.
If it happens in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Florida, okay.
No. I think it's entirely sad that these people have just been tricked. And like, because
had they been tricked or did they choose this?
Well, see, I think I'll give you some of it where, yes, maybe deep down in their heart of hearts, whether it's, again, they just are complete on, they don't like black people or they don't like anybody who's not white, whether they are upset at just the perception of let's take something like globalization and their jobs and the perceived jobs that China has been taking and all that. And not to say there aren't things, but a lot of that as I look into it, and then I just growing with the internet and just seeing things from my own eyes, I'm like, wait, hold on, that's not it. Or even something as basic as like, I got a random text, it's like, oh, your bank account, and it's like, it's phishing, but I know that there is a ton.
They got to be sending them because there's somebody who answers.
Because there's so many people who don't. They just can't. Their discernment isn't there, and then you start thinking like, well, why isn't it there? And it's like, is that because the way we've educated folks over the years? And it's like, we shouldn't even if people are downright like racist, right? Should they even be at this point where they're like, all right, I don't like, to me in my mind, that's what gets crazy. It's like, all right, I know some people who don't like black people, but I know some people that don't like black people. They're still like, hey, we want to keep this thing of democracy or whatever going on.
Yeah.
And I still don't like you.
I don't know how to think. I mean, I don't want to chalk it up to education, because you look at people who are like intentionally undereducated, like say black folks in America, and they seem to understand that democracy is a good thing and they want to keep it. And if you look at people who are, sort of disconnected in various ways from mainstream society, whether it's because they're poor or whether it's because the language barriers or something like that, that doesn't always track with people who believe in shit that isn't real.
But more so the more so like even like the way like we educate folks and like to test like right, it's like all right, there's a test that we want you to pass, and we're just educating like just even general critical thinking skills like folks putting together, listening to some of this, and that's why I get why you're like, no, these people they know what the hell they're doing, because you listen to some of the testimony and people are like, no, I don't really know what I was gonna do when I got in there. It was stupid.
There's a big difference between the people who like that guy who pled guilty to tasing the cop.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know, we hear the interview, we read the interview with him in the FBI, and he sounds like such a pathetic little worm.
Right. It makes me upset.
He's like, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm a bad person. I'm stupid. I don't know why I followed this. I thought I was doing the right fucking thing, but I wasn't. It was just stupid. And like, I'm not buying it, buddy. I'm not buying it. You got in your car, drove a whole couple of states all the way to Washington, D.C., stood out there in the cold, did all of this. Like there were a lot of off-ramps.
I think, but that's the thing. It's like you had to believe something really was wrong, right? To do that, right? To know or either that.
Yeah, but the reason that you believe something is really wrong, it is because you already want the outcome to be what Trump is selling. If you want the outcome to be an authoritarian white ethno state, then if Trump tells you that has been taken away from you, you buy it. You believe that there's something wrong. If what you want is a fair competition of ideas decided by voters at the ballot box, and Trump goes, well, it was actually stolen from me, you go, wait a minute. No, it's not that. It's not worth. I'll tell you right now, I believe in my heart of hearts, absolutely believe that the situation that happened in 2000 between Gore and Bush was bullshit. And I know that Gore won in the popular vote and should have by all rights been president in that regard. And I'm not ever going to be completely convinced that the situation in Florida with all the hanging chads or whatever
and you should
was adjudicated fairly.
And you shouldn't. And it, from reading up on that, you should not feel that.
I don't believe that was adjudicated fairly. I'll never believe that was adjudicated fairly. There's too many reasons to doubt it. But I'll tell you what I didn't do. I didn't riot. I didn't drive to Florida and try to find Catherine Harris or whatever the hell her name is. I didn't go out there and protest the George W. administration. I didn't call him illegitimate anything. I did for a while refer to him as that guy who thinks he's president, but that's mostly because I think that W is a dummy, not because I thought that he stole it. I just said,
but even to your point, who did do those things even during it?
Nobody.
But even before that, if you think about it, what happened in Florida, like what is the Brook brothers? Like if you think who ended up even causing a lot of, again, the behaviors that you just said you didn't do because you just accepted what the Supreme Court said there. Prior to that decision, it was the Republicans that were stoking up, like that were storming, like against state inside of Miami. They were going in to the where they were counting the votes and they were pressure. Like those things were, and then as you look back on that, you're like, all right, well there. And then I think we've talked about it before. If you think back to like Newt Gingrich and just his how he, that you start to see these things building up, and you're like, all right, they've been trying to build this. The bull has been bucking for a little while, and where it's gotten to now, and like I think obviously I blame. We talked about on the phone. I blame McCain.
I kind of have come to agree with you on that in some regard, but I think it does go back further than that. I mean, you're right that I think it is fair to compare Republicans to velociraptors. They are, cold-blooded, murderous killers, and also clever and willing to touch that electric fence in a bunch of places until they find the weak spot.
And I just didn't think, right, whether it's the Federal Society and like the push to how where abortion is, right, sadly about to head, like I didn't think it would get to the democracy. But then as I think about it, like, of course it would.
Of course it does, because it's a logical extension of all of those things. And if you think about it in terms of like suppression of the vote, you think about it in terms of suppression of women, you think about it in terms of suppression of workers, and you think about it in terms of the destruction and absolute annihilation of the poor in this country. You are literally looking at the fascist playbook of the consolidation of power in the hands of a very few number of people, and we will end up like Belarus or something. That they have understood and been advocating for that openly for a generation.
Yeah.
They are out there talking about it. From Reagan telling people that government is not the solution to your problems, elect me and I'll prove it, to Gingrich making his contract with America saying that their goal is to end welfare queens, to W talking about compassionate conservatism and all of this kind of stuff. What they're doing is they are the velociraptors testing that electric fence, and they're looking for those places where they can find an avenue that's going to get them in, and then they're going to expand a little bit, and then they're going to get another avenue, they're going to expand. And all the while, they're rhetorically watering down the language. They're normalizing things that are not normal. They are making things common that are dangerous. And they're doing it in such a way so that just the conversation that we're having becomes kind of like we are using their language. They're using the language and talking about it so often that they force us to adopt their nomenclature for their attempted destruction of our democracy.
I think here's one that scares me the most. This one came out just before the new year from Axios, and it was the highest approval rating amongst the country's national leaders. So who do you think the top?
And it's John Roberts.
It is, Jay. So
people love John Roberts because they think that he's a centrist, and he's not.
Here's what scares me about that. Here's what scares me about all three, the top three. It's Roberts at 60%, Jerome Powell at 53%, and Anthony Fauci at 52%. And I have my quarrels with John Roberts. I have a lot of them with him.
Yeah.
Even if we just were talking about the good old election 2000. And so, all right. But all three of those people are unelected. And I think that is I think that to me is scary, because that tells me that the American public is okay with three unelected. No, and whether you agree with them or not, is that none of these, right, in a republic, I find this very interesting that none of the top three are people who are elected,
who are directly responsible to the voters.
Yeah. I think, and I get why it wouldn't be that. I understand why, right? And everybody, right? What's the thing? Everybody hates Congress, but they don't hate their congressperson.
Yeah. And by nature, then, if it's a president or something, at least half the country hates him or whatever. Right. But what did Lincoln say? That government for, by, and of the people shall not perish from this earth. I mean, we are perilously close to that.
Yeah, what I do believe is, I believe there's enough people in this country that will find a way to make it rebound. But I think of it getting there, I don't see a way. I mean,
you keep saying that. I don't have that optimism. I think that once you fail as a state, you cannot recover from it. I don't see any evidence of it in history.
I just think all this hinges upon is what the federal government's response to anything is, and because the federal government's response to the last time that anything like this ever happened was swift. I mean, and eventually
it was a civil war.
Yeah, exactly. It was swift, but it was swift. Like, it wasn't like, it's like,
they sent the federal troops to Fort Sumter and blew the place up.
Yeah, it's swift. And again, I don't want to advocate for that, but and then these generals.
Yeah, but there's a difference.
We need to talk about these generals who are afraid of defections, in which, when you see people who are ushering these insurrectionists into the Capitol, I mean, where does that, like, and when you see, we talked about how many folks were part of the military, and it's like, but I still think there's enough. I still think that I have to believe that, right? I still think that there will be a response. There will be a federal government response at the end of the day.
Yeah, but then that just is going to look to them like proof. It
is. And then you know what? And then the cards got to get laid. But even bringing it, I ain't signed up to being no fucking authoritarian. That's not what I.
No, I'm not. I'm not ready for that either. I'm obviously going to go down swinging if it came down to that. But I don't think that. I don't know. I mean, I really can't see a positive outcome of this before it gets a whole lot worse. And I'm just a question of like, how fast is that going to accelerate? And
it happens this year. It starts this year with the midterms.
Yeah, it does. But what happens? You know, like Marjorie is out there telling everybody that the election in Georgia was bullshit. It's the same election that got her into Congress. How are these two things possible? They're only possible if you're willing to say literally anything for the outcome that you desire. And the outcome they desire is to be in charge. And for what ends, it doesn't seem to matter. And, you know, they are like the dog that has caught the ambulance. Once they do, in fact, get in power, they devolve into some sort of parochial squabbles between, you know, one's interest versus the other. And their coalition starts to disintegrate, you know, whether it's Dan Crenshaw and Marjorie going at it over the question of vaccines or FEMA helping out or the federal government helping out. You know, you'll notice that the insult that he threw at her was she's either stupid or a Democrat. That even like when they're fighting with each other, there aren't reasonable people on one side of this conversation. And if they do consolidate and get power, look at what happens. We talked about this off air. Look at what happened to Boehner. Boehner thought that he could kind of harness this, and he ended up getting run out on a rail. Same thing happens to Paul Ryan. The same thing seems to be about to happen to Mitch McConnell and you know, whatever.
It's happened to Liz Cheney.
Yeah, Cornyn, and well, I don't know that Cheney ever thought she could harness this power, but like,
but she was a leader, and she was a leader in the party, and she's no longer. Right?
Yeah. Did you see Cheney came in with her security detail today to the Capitol?
Oh, I did not. I just try to stay away from some of this.
Yeah, her father was right next to her.
Oh,
that's true. I'm not making that up. He has shot people in the face.
But here's my question then, right? Is there enough people in this country who think like Dick Cheney? And I have no love or affinity for Dick Cheney. And I think we could go on for another 3 hours of just his legacy in Washington and what he was able to orchestrate with the Iraq War.
I mean, I know where you're going with this. Are there enough of those neocon guys to put these Tea Party idiots out of their party? And I don't think the answer is yeah. I think it's no. No, there aren't.
But there's not more. But I don't think the people who are swayed by this big lie. What are we going to say? 30% of the country. Or
yeah,
do you think it's
more than that? I think it's more. I don't think
it's. I see. And my question is that at a certain point, that isn't the majority, and the only problem ends up being is that this country was never set up for majority rule.
No, but also it has to do with who's got the ammunition, the guns, and the willingness to fight and die for it. You know, the neocons operated at a level of intellectual behavior. They were interested in writing things and making intellectual cases for, you know, annihilation of brown people in the Middle East or whatever they wanted to say. But they were intellectuals, they were elites, they were you know, government guys, they were Ivy Leaguers and stuff like that. The Trumpista wing does not respect people like Wolfowitz or Rumsfeld or any of those kind of guys. They just don't see them as having anything to do with them. I mean, they all hate W, for example.
But my thing is, you're saying, well, they have the I get it comes back to the guns. I think the federal government's response to things.
I don't know who you think that response is. If you're thinking about like the Guard or the Army, the Guard and the Army are heavily made up of people from Appalachia, and they believe in this kind of stuff. You're not going to be able to convince the U.S. Army to go out there and put down an actual rebellion of Trump supporters, because a third of the U.S. Army are those people. And we've seen it, that we've had to kick them out for not getting their damn vaccines. We've seen it. I mean, there just aren't. I know you think that a third is a minority. It's not the majority of the people, but That's the third with all the guns. There's 450 million guns in a country of 350 million people. Less than 17% of the people in this country own a gun. So that tells you where all of these guns are very heavily concentrated in the hands of a very small number of people. The belief structures of the people who would be responsible for your federal response to some sort of actual like long burning insurrection are themselves members of that group that are part of the insurrection. I don't see where this help is going to come from.
So then the question would still remain, then something like January 6th could have continued on. Like it would have never stopped, right? There was a federal response to that, right? And
it was MPD that did it. It was the MPD came and ran them out of there and put them down. The MPD's not as white as some police agencies, but they're at least, duty bound, I guess.
My only point is that it still goes back to it's a wait and see, because it's just still, for me, it's hard for me to believe that there will be, I guess, that type. I don't see it happening that way. I think if it happens anyway, it ends up happening because people get voted in, and the voting rights bill doesn't get passed.
I mean, we see the playbook.
I think there can be more. I think there will eventually be more violence. I don't see a violent takeover, I guess, happening.
Well, Hitler didn't need a violent takeover either.
And that's what I'm saying.
He staged a fake insurrection and then took power. I see that happening. What I'm saying is, I don't think that if we were, say, you and I were like at a block party and we came under attack by a group of Proud Boys and we called the police, would we call the police? Because a lot of them are probably already there. They're just wearing their Proud Boy outfits. Would you call the cops in that situation?
Not me. The question now more so like me, honestly, not. I'm not going to do that. Now the question again goes back to something like, well, that means that white people ain't going to call the police on other white people.
That's look, as a white presenting person in these United States, in suburban America, I'll tell you this: if in my mostly white neighborhood we were having a block party and these guys in 3%er trucks came by and started like zooming around, blasting music or stuff, I would not call the police, because I don't think that they would come to our aid. I think that they might show up, see them, and go, "Hey, Ted," and then join in. And I would believe that we are at the point where our choices will be self-defensive, because we do not have the help. And that problem right there.
Right. Then we're already there.
That's the thing. That's what I'm saying.
I don't believe that. I don't think we're that. I'm not going to go there. Because
why do black folks in the hood own guns?
Yes, for protection.
Right, because they're not going to call the cops, because the cops aren't going to come and help. The cops are an occupying force. They're an enemy. They're a danger. Now I'm looking at the cops and saying that they are heavily infiltrated by a bunch of white supremacists, violent insurrectionists who were participated in an attempt to overthrow the government. Why in God's green earth would I call these guys?
That's fair. I mean, unfortunately, the way that you had to quell all the things that was happening at the Capitol last year, and Miss Babbitt is the one who took the L for that one, because it seemed like everything dispersed a little. Once that happened, it seemed just from that one section that I seemed everything calmed down. I was like, oh my God, it's real. And
yeah, I think a fair number of them thought they were playing some sort of RPG or something.
And that's what I think. I think, well, yes, you have these militia groups, and I think that they are serious about right, whether it's overthrowing the government, but the people that they're going to have to rally, I think they ain't built for this, man.
No, they're not. I mean, you saw it. You saw that they, the guy on a Segway riding up to the Capitol because he was too tired to walk. I mean,
so that's when I also look at this. I'm like, if this is what it's going to be, I was like, Lord, I was like, my limbs are still good. I don't know what force has to fight.
We need to start training. We need to start having our people ready and able in case that that's the end of the country, dude. if we are talking about self-defensive behavior, if we're talking about
everything that ends
training to fight our way out of a white supremacist riot, it's over.
This could have been all fixed with Reconstruction, but no.
Well,
everybody wanted to get back
radical
together.
Republicans.
Everybody wanted to they ran back up to the north and they pulled the troops out, and we would have been in a different place.
Yeah,
50 years of military rule down there. It would have. You know what? It would have just been. It would have been long enough that there would be a diverse group of people in politics in the South, and we might be in a different place.
Well, and there might be enough of accumulation of wealth in the hands of non-white people, and that would have really changed. That's really where the power lies. So I don't know.
So and that's not happening anytime soon. So
speaking of wealth. I do want to touch on this. This is a segment called "This is Fucking Stupid." You may remember the "Let's Go Brandon" chant, which had to do with this Woodbridge native, actually, native of our area, Brandon Brown. He drives in what used to be called the Busch Series. It's sort of lower series of NASCAR. He won his first race. The people in the pit area were cheering for him. The reporter came over to talk to him and say, "How did it feel to win your first race?" And the people in the back started chanting, "Fuck Joe Biden." And the reporter goes, "Oh, they must be saying, 'Let's go, Brandon.'" And the Trump people all jumped on that and like, "Hey, we're going to say, 'Let's go, Brandon.' And it really means Joe Biden." And they started like emblazoning this all over the place, including in my neighborhood, a guy who set up a Santa Claus and a Frosty the Snowman with speech bubbles saying, "Let's go, Brandon."
Oh wow! This is a little code word. So this is what I see. Let's go, Brandon. That's
what they mean. Yeah, the left has now adopted the "Let's go, Darwin" version of this, which is a reference to something that we talk about a lot. Okay, so the "Let's go, Brandon" thing intersects with something else equally fucking stupid: cryptocurrency. So some idiots came up with a cryptocurrency called LGB coin. That's "Let's Go Brandon" coin. And then they came up with enough money to sponsor Brandon Brown's car, which he accepted, of course. NASCAR has since banned this. They have decided that this is not an okay thing. They get to decide what goes on the cars and what doesn't. But
look, they banned the Confederate flag and this. Look at that.
They're making very slow progress over there.
Look at NASCAR.
Hey, I'm a fan still, but I got to keep my distance. I don't go to the races. Probably because I'm not the right race. So
you should be careful. I care about you, buddy.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. But the crypto thing is dumb. Because it's not real, and people are just making up currencies. It is, they're literally not tied to anything. They don't have anything to do with it. So like when the LGB coin guys sponsored this car, the question from NASCAR and basically everybody is, what is this thing that has enough money to sponsor it? In their press release announcing the sponsorship of the car, I want to read you the quote. The team's news release makes no mention of Biden and characterizes the product, which a disclaimer makes clear has, quote, "no intrinsic value and should not be bought with any intention of resale, as America's coin, and aims to inspire positivity and unity grounded in a strong belief of the American dream." So they know that their thing is bullshit. And they had to issue a disclaimer saying that it was bullshit.
The political analyst had the funny quote there, where but just I want to read the whole quote, but I don't want to show the time. But just for the most part, NASCAR has admirably tried to disassociate itself from partisan and racist nastiness. So let's hope they do the right thing and nix this sponsorship deal.
They did. Good for NASCAR.
Look, man, no more. We got to disassociate ourselves from partisan and racist nastiness, folks.
Speaking of nastiness, the last story that we've got to fit this in. Yeah. We didn't get to talk about the crackberries' demise, but right. Crackberries are over. As you see on my hat, and as you probably know if you're a fan of the show, I am quite the fan of the Pabst Blue Ribbon. It's one of my favorite brewed products. This, I don't know, New Year's season, a lot of people go for this thing, dry January, where they don't drink. Are you doing that?
Yeah, I've been doing it for like the last 4 or 5. Last year I did not do it because as I got 6 days into it, I was very stressed out, and I was like,
yeah. I'm not a proponent of it personally, but I understand that people do it. So over at PBR, they also are obviously not proponents of dry January. That would impact their sales very heavily. So, in an effort to kind of inject a little humor into the idea and maybe, slap somebody with a joke, they started talking about dry January, and they started with a tweet that said, "Dry January is so last year. Ha ha ha." And then instead they could have ended it, but they finished it off by saying, "Try eating ass." Not drinking this January, try eating ass. And then that's a strange tweet. I wonder if somebody hacked them. That seems a little odd. No, it went on with a bunch of other ones. I wonder if Brian's got all of them. It would be really dangerous. Let's see. People should try eating ass. They said, then later, in an attempt to recover, they tweeted, "Everything's an ass. All ass, no breaks. Suddenly eating ass is on brand." Those are all individual tweets. And I don't know how their legal department didn't jump in, but don't worry. The good folks at Slim Jim jumped in for them and pointed out, quote, "Legal must have had off until the 4th," because these tweets just kept firing. Do you think it was the guy who runs the Twitter account was just drunk and said the thing once, and then he was like, "Oh shit, I got to try to recover," instead of just deleting the damn tweet?
I wonder if when you run a social media account for a company, if you got a burner account that you just got to get stupid shit off of.
Yeah, I would.
Right. And maybe this is you getting off, but no, or this person just really, what they say, the mass resignations. Maybe this was his way of saying, look,
that was his way out. Yeah, it's a good way to go down. I mean, it's better than AB.
Oh, look, man,
we're not touching that with a 20-foot pole because we don't know. There are a lot of details still to come out of that.
Yeah, but what about your team? How did your team end the season?
The same way we always do, Pinky. In disgrace, misery, and lack of dignity.
You know who I'm not fully. Obviously, we already know about football, but I try every year to get back into it. But the Washington fans deserve better. Yeah, and at this point, I ain't even telling you to quit football, but you don't have to root for these folks, man. You don't have respect yourselves. Look at this. Look at this. Look.
I know. We don't have a name. We don't have anything. Our stadium is literally falling apart. We did successfully, I would point out, injure a bunch of Eagles fans. So that is pretty valuable, as an organization.
Our stadium is eating the fans that go to it because no Washington fans are going to see it anymore.
I mean, fair enough that the Eagles fans were leaning on a piece of equipment that was not meant to hold them up. So
I thought it was supposed to hold up 6 wheelchairs. But
I guess stands were, but the guardrails are not, load bearing, and they snapped it off, which. Those things are actually designed to snap off after they reach a certain pressure for flood reasons and all that kind of stuff. Debris gets pressed up against it and the water's pushing and blah, blah, blah. They have shear pins on them, essentially.
Look, the only issue I have with this is that there's nothing like DC on a Monday after that team wins when that team is good. And I just think that the fans here deserve better. And yeah, I don't know. Look, I never thought I'd say this. Maybe go up to there's a team in Baltimore right there. Right?
Nope. Not doing that. Not doing that.
Look, we're the DC Baltimore area. That's what it really is. Look, I'm gonna make a lot of people mad with that one.
Yeah, you are. All the Go-Go fans are about to go storm our studio.
Yeah, look, DC Baltimore area, man.
No, we're not doing that. You know what? We're going to look for a new co-host. I can't condone that kind of behavior on the show. Can't have that at all. No. I was not born in Baltimore. I was born in the district.
Look, weren't they used to be the Baltimore Bullets?
They did, and then they moved to DC.
Let me stop.
That's true.
Oh my God, I'm just
I'm still an O's fan though. I'm still
exactly.
I'm a homer. What am I gonna do?
Sensibilities are all over the place. You hate the Nationals. You love the O's.
No, I don't hate the Nats. I got a poster of them up too. They won the series. It's good for them. I used to work for them. FDA is about to let kids get the boosters if they're old enough. That's fantastic. I can't wait. We did talk about the what the fucks. I hate them. The New York Attorney General wants to subpoena Trump's kids, but definitely not Eric, because nobody wants Eric. Not even Tish James thinks he has anything worthwhile to say. All right. You hear the music. That's Brian's way of saying the show's over. We want to say thanks again to all the other nominees of the Rippies. It was a great event. We hope that we are invited back again. I don't know if we will be. Thanks. I might have fucked that up. Okay. Thanks to our radio partners, Stitcher, Google, iHeart, Amazon, all those billionaires. Thanks to the folks at NOTN for keeping us on for another week. Not billionaires. Thanks to our digital media muffaletta, Keyway in Baltimore. Thanks to our home on the... He's got new music, by the way. Go check that out. Thanks to our home on the internet, coplaymedia.com. And thanks, as always, to our family here at Rip Radio for making us sound as smooth as Trump's press conference today. That didn't happen. All right, where can everybody find you on the social medias there, Tez?
I was going to say, not at the Capitol. But no, you can find... You can find me on Twitter at DC Cortez and on Instagram at KetchumCordy.
All right, and you can find me and the show on Twitter at ChipChatRR, and you can find us on Facebook or Instagram at RipChipChat, and you can't find me anywhere anymore because Ted Cruz. Maybe Tucker and I can join forces in our mutual disrespect for Raphael. Weirder things have happened on this show.
The whole reason that we're even with this January 6th thing, and I said it, is because the state of Georgia decided to send a black man and a Jew to the Senate.
That's true.
I think that was what boiled everything over. It was
you and I together represent the end of democracy.
Well, you'll listen to us while it ends.
Yes. While Rome burns, you're listening to Chip Chat on Ripped Radio Network.